Chapter 81. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What's going on here? Isn't he just asking for it? Not only did he piss off Daoyuo Tiangong, but now he's picking a fight to the death with the soul-devouring sect. But even the old guy in black freaked out, his face twisted with shock and anger, staring daggers at Changqing. Kid, you've got a death wish. That he let out a weird screech, clapped his hands together, then snapped them open, unleashing a ball of spiritual energy that morphed into a black mist, ready to devour some souls. It roared, instantly becoming a 100-foot-long mist dragon, charging at Changqing. As the mist dragon roared, cultivators below felt their minds slipping, like they were about to fly into the dragon and become part of it. That's the soul-devouring sect's signature move. Seriously messed up. Your mind is a cultivator's foundation. If it's damaged, you're screwed. And their attacks are all about messing with your head and trashing your consciousness. It's almost impossible to defend against. That everyone was terrified, desperately trying to hold on to their sanity and keep their minds from escaping. The soul-devouring sect's soul-catching envoy in the air was scared witless, but Changqing didn't flinch. Instead, seeing how the mist dragon could devour minds, he raised an eyebrow, a spark in his eyes. Absorbing minds? Messing with consciousness? Nice. Let's see what your so-called holy sect is really made of. Open up. Changqing roared. He actually dropped the defenses around his own consciousness, turning his mind into a vortex. A terrifying sucking power erupted, and he swallowed the 100-foot-long mist dragon right into his consciousness. What's he trying to do? Is he insane? He just opened up his mind like that everyone was dumbfounded. They were so shocked by Changqing's actions, they thought they were hallucinating. Even the old man in black froze for a second before snapping out of it and bursting out laughing. Ha ha ha. You little idiot, you really want to die, and I'm not gonna stop you. He grinned, changed his hand seals, and hissed, detonate. He stared at Changqing, waiting to see his consciousness shatter, his head explode, and his brain splatter. But the next second, his grin froze on his face. He'd lost contact with the mist dragon he'd sent out. It had charged into Changqing's mind like a rock thrown into the ocean, vanished without a trace. That's not your mind at all. Kid, what are you doing? Where did you take my soul-devouring mist? The old man's voice trembled. Soul-devouring mist was a key weapon for the soul-devouring sect, like a cultivator's prized magical weapon. Changqing had just stolen half his strength. He was freaking out. Not my mind. Changqing smirked at the old man's panic. Old man, take a closer look. Is this my mind? Instantly, a bright light blazed between Changqing's eyebrows. The old man in black could finally sense his soul-devouring mist, and he tried to escape this vast ocean, but as soon as he moved, he felt an overwhelming pressure, crushing in from all sides, and he finally understood where this vast sea was. It was the sea of consciousness between Changqing's eyebrows that he had wanted to break into at the start. But, his sea of consciousness was so vast, he'd mistaken it for some kind of hidden treasure. How could this be happening? Impossible. No way. How can your spirit be so strong? How can your mind be so terrifying? The old man's consciousness, trapped in the mist dragon, thrashed wildly, trying to break free, but it was useless. He couldn't stop the spiritual power surging from all directions. Finally. Poof! The 100-foot-long mist dragon, along with the old man's consciousness, was crushed and destroyed by Changqing's spiritual power. The old man in black felt the same thing. He coughed up blood, pointed a shaky finger at Changqing, and gasped, your spirit, it's not just God Emperor level. He was utterly terrified. The power that had crushed the mist dragon was beyond anything the soul-devouring sect's God Emperors could muster. Where did such a monster come from? He desperately tried to send a message to the soul-devouring sect. But Changqing wasn't about to let that happen. He focused his mind, *whoosh, star, his eyes flashed, and his spiritual power poured out, transforming into a mist dragon like the old man's. But then, he devoured the remaining consciousness of the old man in black, turning it into fuel for his own spiritual power. Ha! Gu Changqing exhaled, feeling his spirit grow stronger, his face calm. The old man in black had actually been pretty strong. A perfected heavenly emperor, with all the soul-devouring sex tricks. A normal god emperor would have had to work to take him down, too bad. His specialty was spiritual attacks against Gu Changqing, who had unlocked the heavenly refined holy body. His spiritual power was his most lethal weapon in terms of raw power. Gu Changqing was only at the level of a god emperor, but with his spiritual power boost, he might not be as strong as a holy emperor, the realm above god emperor. But showing off spiritual power in front of him was like showing off your basic skills in front of a master, pure suicide. And killing the old man in black wasn't a complete waste. The technique of transforming one's spirit into soul-devouring mist, to devour the souls of others, was a worthwhile attack that Gu Changqing would now master. Not bad that I pulled that move. Gu Changqing murmured. The crowd below had watched as the soul-devouring sex soul catcher, a perfected heavenly emperor, had been swatted like a fly. Their throats were tight, their mouths dry. This southern ceremony was turning out to be one hell of an event. The Kanglan saint, whose brother was a divine emperor's disciple and a top 10 genius on the spiritual ranking, had been killed. The Kanglan Holy Land, which had dominated the southern spiritual domain for 10,000 years, was history. On top of that, a soul-devouring sect soul catcher had been taken out. Any one of these events would have caused a sensation, but they were all happening here, now, and the star of the show was standing above them, white robes brighter than snow, radiating an otherworldly aura, like a banished immortal. Gu Changqing. No one spoke, they just stared at the white-robed god king in the sky, engraving that name in their minds. At that moment, a voice echoed in Gu Changqing's mind. It was Emperor Xian. Fellow Taoist Changqing, you're being a little reckless. If the soul-devouring sect teams up with Daluo Heavenly Palace, even I might not be able to protect you. Even Emperor Xian, a powerful god emperor, felt the pressure. Gu Changqing was strong, but he acted without thinking. It didn't matter who you were, or what your background was. If you pissed him off, you were dead. Before coming to Kanglan Holy Land, Emperor Xian had warned Gu Changqing that Kanglan Holy Land was nothing, but if the brother of the Kanglan saint was the disciple of the palace master of Daluo Heavenly Palace, he should only be taught a lesson, even if it means crippling him, but he must not be killed. But obviously, Gu Changqing hadn't listened, and had still killed the holy maiden Kanglan. Emperor Xian sighed. She'd be fine. Even if it was Daluo Tiangong, they couldn't stop her from leaving. But Gu Changqing, she'd only just rebuilt her body, and was far from her peak. Even at her peak, she'd been afraid of spiritual giants like Daluo Tiangong. It's fine. Gu Changqing said simply. He knew what Emperor Xian was worried about, but she didn't know that he wasn't reckless, and that he wasn't relying on her. The celestial sovereign puppet was his ace. Gu Changqing never acted recklessly. If he did, he wouldn't have waited until now to bring his wife to Kanglan Holy Land for revenge. But Gu Changqing didn't want to explain. The celestial sovereign puppet was his trump card, best kept hidden unless absolutely necessary. Emperor Xian would find out eventually. And while the southern forces were in shock, in the middle of the spiritual realm, outside Daluo Palace, in Luotian City, inside a magnificent palace, a young man, effeminate and handsome, was toasting with friends. But then, *buzz, a jade plate engraved with the word, Xian, in his storage ring trembled, then shattered in his mind, turning into countless fragments and dissolving into nothing. The young man stood up, crushing the wine cup in his hand. Chapter 82. You are listening at novelfull.audio. By phone. You okay? Seeing his reaction, his friends all paled and rushed to his side, asking, Brother, what's wrong? The concern in their voices seemed to soothe him slightly, but the anger in his eyes still burned. He took a deep breath. It's my sister. Ling Xian's jade token just broke. His words dropped like a bombshell, causing a fresh wave of concern among the group. Baifeng wasn't just some random guy. He was the current palace master of Daluo Tiangong, a top dog in the Divine Emperor Perfection realm, his direct disciple, and currently number 9 on the spirit list. His friends were no slouches either, each backed by their own Divine Emperor powerhouses. Among them, Hualiani, the female cultivator closest to Yu Baifeng and the first to speak, had especially good connections. She wasn't from a Divine Emperor sect, but from one of the few Saint Emperor forces that truly sat at the top of the spirit realm. As the granddaughter of the Saint Emperor Patriarch, she'd been pampered her entire life. She and Yu Baifeng had met during an adventure. While she wasn't exactly a knockout, Yu Baifeng had shown her a lot of attention, especially after learning about her family. With his good looks, he'd quickly won her heart. Now, they were betrothed and planning to marry the following year. She knew how much Yu Baifeng cared about his sister. So, what had happened to Yu Lingxian? What happened? They all asked at once, their voices filled with concern. Yu Baifeng shook his head. He had his suspicions. His sister was probably being too reckless and finally ran into trouble, but, he clenched his fist, his eyes hardening. She was still his sister. Whoever did this will pay, even if I have to wipe out their entire clan, he vowed silently. He quickly composed himself, stood up, and gave his friends a slight bow. Thank you for your concern. I need to return to the palace and find out who killed Ling Xian and make them pay. Right. Ling Xian is Brother Yu's sister. Whoever killed her needs to bleed for it. Bleed, and their entire family needs to be wiped out. Yu Baifeng's friends echoed, each expressing their support. If you need help, Brother Yu, just say the word. Hualiani jumped in. Baifeng, me too. Let me know if you need anything. I will. Looking at Hualiani's earnest face, Yu Baifeng nodded. Without another word, he shot out of Luotian city and headed straight for the Daoyuo Tiangong. Yu Baifeng began his investigation into Yu Lingxuan's death. Meanwhile, back at the Southern Grand Ceremony, with Kanglan Holy Land destroyed, the event was coming to a close. Even though the final champion hadn't been officially announced, everyone knew who the real winner was. Evergreen God King. These 2 jade tokens allow entry into Dream Spring. With these tokens, you control the 200 slots. Inside Kanglan City's Lord's Mansion, which had become Gu Changqing and the Gu family's temporary base, the envoys from the other 2 holy lands in the south, Yuehua Holy Land and Tianshan Holy Land, respectfully presented the Dream Spring tokens to Gu Changqing. Gu Changqing took the tokens, examined them, and quickly figured out how they worked. Seeing Gu Changqing grasp the tokens, the envoys from the 2 holy lands felt a pang of regret. Dream Spring was invaluable, even to them, but they had no choice but to give it up. Considering the power Gu Changqing had displayed, it was a small price to pay. The south now belonged to the Changqing God King. Gu Changqing, however, didn't care about their feelings. He immediately handed the tokens to Gu Yuan, who was standing beside him. Father, you can decide who gets to go. Give about 100 spots to reliable disciples and elders in the clan. Keep 10 for me, I might need them later. As for the rest. Gu Changqing smiled slightly. Father, you can trade them. It should bring in a lot of cultivation resources for the Gu family. Gu Yuan's eyes lit up. Even the envoys of the various forces below perked up at the mention of trading. They'd feared the Gu family would hoard all the Dream Spring slots, but now, it seemed they had a chance. The thought made them excited. Gu Yuan was practically buzzing. 200 Dream Spring slots. Even if they only traded 90, the resources they'd get, plus the Dream Spring itself, would give the Gu family a huge boost. Not to mention that Kanglan Holy Land had been destroyed, and its entire estate and inheritance were now feeding the Gu family. Dream Spring will open in 3 months. But we can start digesting Kanglan Holy Land's estate as soon as we get back, making the Gu family stronger. Gu Yuan was ecstatic. Gu Changqing, on the other hand, remained calm. The rewards from the southern ceremony were exactly what he'd expected. The only unexpected thing had been the soul-devouring sect trying to stir up trouble. Soul-devouring sect. If they back down now, fine. If they come looking for trouble again, we'll just crush them. He handed the Dream Spring tokens to his father for safekeeping. Gu Changqing briefly addressed the envoys and, with the Gu family, departed under the watchful eyes of the other forces in the south, beginning their journey home. Meanwhile, Xianin Pavilion was also boarding the Tianyin flying boat, preparing to return. Just then. Boom! In the distant sea of clouds, a roaring sound shattered the peace, instantly putting the female cultivators of Xianin Pavilion on high alert. A flying boat broke through the clouds, flying the flag of the Yanlong dynasty. And leading the charge was the god king of the Yanlong dynasty himself. Swish! Fairy Lu immediately flew out of the flying boat and landed in front of her disciples, confronting the Yanlong dynasty delegation. What's the meaning of this? Are you really planning to start a war with Xianin Pavilion over something so trivial? The god king of the Flame Dragon dynasty looked terrified, waving his hands frantically. He bowed apologetically. Please don't say that, fairy. Any offense was entirely my fault. I just hope the fairy won't hold our past arrogance against us. He waved his hand. 3 storage bags appeared, overflowing with spiritual energy that instantly caught the attention of the disciples. These are the Yanlong dynasty's apology. We hope the fairy of Xianin Pavilion will accept them. Thank you. He bowed repeatedly, acting anything but the domineering emperor he was known to be, leaving the Xianin Pavilion disciples speechless. Only Fairy Lu and Bai Yueling understood. The Yanlong dynasty isn't afraid of Xianin Pavilion. They're terrified of the Changqing god king. Fairy Lu sighed softly, remembering Gu Changqing's destruction of Kanglan, the beheading of the emperor, and the killing of the sole envoy. Her heart trembled. Turning her head, she saw her disciple, Bai Yueling, staring with sparkling eyes. She considered her options, her gaze drifting to the 3 storage bags. Originally, she hadn't planned on keeping the treasures. They were obtained through Gu Changqing's power, so they rightfully belonged to him, but I was only planning to send a random disciple, but perhaps this is Linger's good fortune. An idea sparked. Fairy Lu grabbed the storage bags and handed them to Bai Yueling. Linger, take these 3 storage bags to the Changqing god king. Go quickly. As Bai Yueling, following her master's order, cluelessly and nervously chased after the Gu family's flying boat. At the same time, with the southern ceremony officially over, in the middle of the spirit realm, an immense pressure suddenly descended, shaking everything and spreading for thousands of miles. Countless cultivators in the central spirit realm were shocked and awed. They recognized this pressure. It always appeared above the sea of clouds whenever a top genius was born. This is a change in the spirit ranking. The spirit ranking is about to be updated again. Chapter 83. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Word spread like wildfire among the cultivators. Throughout the spirit realm, elders and powerhouses from every faction emerged from their secluded training spots, all drawn by a sense of impending change, their eyes fixed on the sky. Even the most arrogant prodigies couldn't help but look up. The spirit list itself was shrouded in mystery. The soul-devouring sect, a hidden power spanning several domains, was notorious for unleashing bloody chaos whenever it emerged, yet they weren't the most enigmatic group. The real top-tier hidden sect in the spirit realm was the Heavenly Secret Sect, the creators of the spirit list. No one knew how they gathered their information or who their disciples were. Consequently, nobody knew just how powerful they were. The cultivators of the spirit realm only knew one thing: the Heavenly Secret Sect had existed for countless years, so mysterious that even the Holy Emperor of the spirit realm wouldn't dare to mess with them. So, when the sky shifted, and the celestial secrets began to churn as the spirit list prepared to reveal itself, with a pressure that blanketed the entire realm, the most elite cultivators were drawn in, their eyes full of anticipation as they gazed at the list hanging in the air. I wonder who'll make the list this time. Just as they hoped. Buzz. Spiritual energy surged, and the list materialized. 100 names, ranked from top to bottom, reflected the previous rankings. Yu Baifeng, surprisingly, held the 9th spot. Su Ziyu, who'd crossed paths with Gu Changqing and others in the Xianhuang secret realm, was also on the list. Everyone scanned the familiar names. Finally, their eyes landed on the top spot. Luo Xinyue. A true legend in the spirit realm. Known as the most beautiful and powerful young cultivator of her generation, her placement on the spirit list wasn't based on intel gathered by the Heavenly Secret Sect. She was already a rising star before the spirit list even took notice. Since reaching the king realm, she systematically challenged everyone on the list. With each breakthrough, she skyrocketed in the rankings. 3 years ago, she claimed the top spot. The list had been updated over 10 times since then, but her position had never been challenged. After a moment of reflection on Luo Xinyue's legendary rise, everyone's attention drifted back to the other names. I wonder how many new faces we'll see, and who'll get knocked off, just as they speculated. Buzz, a name previously ranked 22nd suddenly leaped forward. It skipped ahead. Straight to 22nd. Unbelievable. Which faction produced this prodigy? A wave of excited chatter broke out, but before they could process it, the cultivator who had been 22nd wasn't just bumped to 23rd, they were pushed all the way to 24th. Even the rankings of dozens of others were affected. The crowd was stunned. Down 2 places. 2 new top 30 talents at once. Under the shocked gazes. An unfamiliar name appeared on the spirit list. 23rd, Guyunshi, Han Qin Empire. Guyunshi. Who's that? And where's the Han Qin Empire? Just as they were puzzling it out, above Gu Yunshi's name, another new name materialized. 22nd, Jiang Lianqin, Han Qin Empire. Now, the crowd erupted. One surprise from the Han Qin Empire was unexpected, but 2. And from a place no one had ever heard of. What's going on here? Just as they were reeling, a shout cut through the noise. Look! Look at the top. The number 1 spot is flashing. What? Are you crazy? No one can take down Luo Xinyue. The immediate reaction was disbelief, but they all looked up, and saw the name Luo Xinyue fading, and everyone on the list moved down, which triggered a collective gasp. What is happening? Even Luo Xinyue's number 1 title? Everyone stood frozen, gripping their robes, waiting to see what came next. Chapter 84. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Until, first place, Gu Changqing, Han Qin Empire, silence, a drawn-out, heavy silence. Finally, the spirit list faded, the spiritual energy settled, and the endless sea of clouds stilled. The cultivators present slowly snapped out of their daze, but their hearts still raced. And the big shots and geniuses who'd been rocked by the change to the spirit list jumped into action. Find out everything. Who is this Han Qin Empire? Move it. That day, the central spirit realm was buzzing with activity. Even Yubaifeng was shocked. Forces everywhere dispatched people to investigate Gu Changqing and the Han Qin Empire. Among them was the Su family, a reclusive clan in the heart of the spirit realm. But just as the Su family's scouts were about to depart, their young mistress stopped them. No need. Su Ziyu spoke softly, her eyes wide with surprise. She'd been in seclusion when news of the spirit list reached her. She came out to investigate, but she never expected to see Gu Changqing and his people on it. Back in the Xianhuang secret realm, she knew Gu Changqing and his group were talented, way beyond ordinary, but she never imagined they were this good. She composed herself, looked at her puzzled family, and said, I know who they are. They're from the Han Qin Empire, the Gu family. The Han Qin Empire? It's just a small country in the southern spirit realm. What? The southern spirit realm? How can such geniuses come from a backwater like that? The Su family was floored. They thought they'd misheard the southern spirit realm. That was the Bunis. They had the audacity to call a dump like Tianhuang realm a holy land. That place produced a spirit list prodigy. Unbelievable, nobody from the south had ever even sniffed the spirit list before. Now, they had the top spot, and 2 people in the top 30. Seeing their young mistress's serious face, they knew she wasn't kidding. This is insane. The Su family shook their heads in disbelief. Meanwhile, at the Luo family mansion, another ancient family in the central spirit realm, the atmosphere was even more electric. Luo Xinyue, the Luo family's eldest daughter, had dominated the spirit list for years. The list had changed before, but she always held on to number 1, and the Luo family was proud, not just because of her rank. Unlike previous spirit list prodigies, who were ranked by the Tianji Tower first, and then proved their strength. Luo Xinyue had beaten the prodigies on the spirit list one by one, from the bottom up, before the Tianji Tower even considered her, in the past 100,000 years. She was the only person to reach the top spot on the spirit list purely through her own merit. But now, someone took it from her. Someone they'd never even heard of. Gu Changqing. That the Luo family stared at his name, seething, but they weren't worried. Our young mistress has been in seclusion for 2 years, mastering the family's ultimate techniques. She hasn't been out, hasn't fought anyone. Of course the Tianji Tower underestimated her. Once she comes out, she'll reclaim the top spot for sure. That the Luo family kids could only think that, subconsciously, they looked towards the family's ancestral land, hoping she'd emerge, as if answering their prayers. Boom! A beam of light erupted from the Luo family's ancestral land. An icy aura spread from the ancestral land towards the mansion. Everyone who felt it, regardless of their cultivation, shivered from the bone-chilling chill, but they weren't scared. They stared at the light, enraptured. There, a girl in silver armor, holding a sword, beautiful yet fierce, with an otherworldly aura, floated in the air. Her eyes closed, she stood there, like a mournful moon, making the world feel desolate. This was Miss Luo herself, the former spirit list champion, Luo Xinyue. I sense a disturbance. What's all the commotion? The Luo family looked at her with utter devotion. After hearing her question, they exchanged glances. Finally, a maid who'd served her for years spoke. Miss, the spirit list, it's changed. The rankings, they've changed. The spirit list changed. What's so surprising about that? Luo Xinyue opened her eyes, confused. Well. The maid hesitated. Your ranking, you've been pushed down to second place. The new number 1 is someone called Gu Changqing, from the Han Empire. We don't know much about him. What? Luo Xinyue gasped. The Luo family kids lowered their heads, afraid. They were afraid she'd lose it and take it out on them. Normally, she was gentle, even to servants, but losing the top spot, who knew what she'd do? But then, everyone was stunned. Luo Xinyue wasn't angry. She was smiling, surprised. Ha! Good news. Her eyes showed no shame or anger, only excitement. I've been in seclusion for 2 years because there's no competition out there. Now, someone's finally shaken things up. It makes my 2 years worthwhile. Someone to pique my interest. She got more and more excited, her eyes sparkling. She pointed at the maid and said, You. Tell the family to find out everything about this Gu Changqing, where he's from, where he is now. Then tell me. I'm going to the Han Empire right away. I want to see what this brother Gu can do. Luo Xinyue couldn't wait. The spirit list? She didn't care. Challenging the spirit list then, challenging Gu Changqing now, her goal was the same, fight to improve, hone her skills, and find a worthy opponent. And now Gu Changqing was her target. I hope this brother Gu doesn't disappoint. After that day, the central spirit realm was in an uproar as forces raced to find Gu Changqing and the Han Empire, but it wasn't easy. Some sects had special motivations, though, like Daoyuo Palace, driven by revenge. In Yu Baifeng's palace. The Gu family of the Han Empire killed my sister. Yu Baifeng stared at the Daoyuo Tiangong deacon kneeling before him, his voice tight with rage. It's true. Also, the Gu family is strong. They recently destroyed the Kanglan Holy Land, an emperor-level power. Oh, Yu Baifeng frowned. He was going to go alone. He thought nobody in the southern spirit realm could stop him. Now, he had to admit he was wrong. If they could destroy the Kanglan Holy Land, they were no joke. He, alone, not yet an emperor, was no match, but luckily. I can't do it, but my master can. Yu Baifeng's eyes burned with hatred. He dismissed the deacon and rushed to his master, Gong Yu. After explaining his purpose, the Daoyuo Tiangong palace master agreed immediately. I'll go with you. We'll avenge your sister. The palace master was emphatic. Yu Baifeng was his prized disciple, destined for greatness. Since joining Daluo Tiangong, Yu Baifeng had been taught everything, and hadn't disappointed, ninth on the spirit list. He suppressed the descendants of Saint Emperor giants. He had to be protected. The palace master also worried this would become Yu Baifeng's inner demon, harming his future. It was his own sister. So he had to go, unless he wanted to lose his supreme genius. But since they destroyed the Kanglan Holy Land, they might have tricks up their sleeves. A lion must hunt a rabbit with full force. Uncle Yulong will come with us. Thank you, master. Yu Baifeng was thrilled. Uncle Yulong was one of the Daluo Palace's deputy masters. He was as powerful as the palace master, a late-stage divine emperor. 2 late-stage divine emperors could easily crush a force in the southern spirit realm. They could even slaughter the entire south. Yu Baifeng began preparing his forces to avenge his sister. Meanwhile, near the spirit realm. Whoosh! A ghostly black-robed figure stopped. Under the hood, his eyes glowed with a misty blue flame, like ghost fire. Shuttling through the void. Only a divine emperor could do that. The figure stared at the spirit realm. After a moment, a figure flickered in the blue flame. If Changqing was here, he'd recognize the soul-devouring sect's soul-binding envoy he'd killed. Behind the figure, a blue ghost fire burned. In the soul-devouring sect, that meant he'd fallen. Interesting. Someone dares to mess with my holy sect's plans in the spirit realm. Impudent. The figure sneered. He flashed towards the spirit realm, falling like a comet. His black robe billowed like wings. A death scythe symbol flashed crimson, a creepy sight in the dark void. Chapter 85. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Spiritual domain, south. As the southern ceremony wrapped up, all the factions started heading home. News about the Kanglan Holy Land's destruction began to spread like wildfire throughout the southern part of the spiritual domain, and naturally, the Gu family's name started echoing across the land. Time was a factor, so their reputation hadn't blanketed the entire southern territory yet. But every major power had caught wind of it. Take, for instance, Yuehua Holy Land. They were just as famous. As Kanglan among the southern Holy Lands, a true powerhouse, the disciple Yuehua Holy Land sent to the southern ceremony was their top prodigy, someone cultivated for years by the old master of Yuehua Holy Land. The old master was confident that his disciple would crush even Yu Lingxian of Kanglan Holy Land. So, after getting his disciple back, he led the group home. The head of Yuehua and the top brass of the Holy Land went out to welcome their disciple, the champion of the southern ceremony. But when they saw the returning team, they were stunned. Both the holy son of Yuehua Holy Land and the accompanying elders looked totally out of it, like they'd been through some serious stuff at the ceremony and hadn't bounced back yet. What on earth happened at the ceremony? The Yuehua head wondered. As the leader of the Holy Land, he quickly regained his composure, cleared his throat, and tried to snap his disciple out of it. Luo Shan, what's with the face? Didn't you win the ceremony? Hearing his master bring up the southern ceremony, Luo Shan and the elders behind him snapped back to reality, thinking about their experience, especially seeing Changqing slice the Kanglan leader with a sword and take out that soul-devouring cult guy. He shuddered and shook his head. Master, I didn't win. If I could beat that monster. Luo Shan thought, I wouldn't just be the holy son of Yuehua, I'd be qualified to take over as the head. The head of Yuehua noticed no guilt in Luo Shan's eyes, only disbelief. Is the gap between me and that old goat Kanglan really that big? Both disciples trained with care, but after losing to the Kanglan saint, he doesn't even feel bad for letting me down. Was the Kanglan saint really that strong? Did she learn some crazy powerful magic? Or unlock some secret that made you lose heart? The old master couldn't help but ask, his tone sharp. Saint Kanglan. Lose heart. Luo Shan looked up, confused, and then realized his master didn't know what happened at the southern ceremony. He quickly shook his head. Master, you've got the wrong idea. It wasn't about Saint Kanglan. She didn't even place. She's dead. What? Luo Shan repeated himself. The old master was speechless. Even he had heard of Saint Kanglan Yu Lingxian, with a brother in the top 10 of the spirit list, even he had to treat her with respect, and now, she was dead? Just like that? Didn't Changqing Holy Land react? Does anyone know who did it? Yuehua didn't get any news, that if it wasn't coming from his own disciple, he would have thought it was fake news. Seeing the disbelief on his master's face, Luo Shan forced a smile. Master, it's normal that Changqing Holy Land didn't react because it wasn't just the saint who died. Changqing Holy Land was wiped out. What? Now, the old master was on his feet. Changqing Holy Land was just as powerful as Yuehua. If someone could destroy Changqing, they could probably destroy Yuehua Holy Land too. How could the head of Yuehua stay calm? Fortunately, as Luo Shan continued his story, the head of Yuehua started to relax. From Luo Shan's information, the Gu family had a grudge against Changqing Holy Land, which led to the disaster. They didn't seem like a bloodthirsty bunch, which was a relief, but still. The Gu family? Who are they? That the head of Yuehua was suspicious. The Gu family hadn't been relevant for ages. Over time, even the greatest legends fade. Even if you looked at the whole spiritual domain, there might only be a handful of people who remembered their name. He didn't know much about them, but he didn't dwell on it for too long. The Gu family might be strong, but their long-term survival was still questionable. Changqing Holy Land is a small matter, but the saint's brother isn't someone to mess with. With Daluo Tiangong's personality, their leader will be out for revenge before long. And the head of Yuehua narrowed his eyes, glancing towards the Han Qin Empire, his eyes gleaming. His disciple said that Gu Changqing also killed a soul-devouring cult messenger. The soul-devouring sect was an even bigger threat than Daluo Tiangong. The Gu family was rising fast, but whether they'd be a star or a shooting comet depended on if they could make it through this. If they don't make it, it's over. Their glory disappears, and we can relax. We can even split up Changqing Holy Land's old territories and get back the Menjiuquan. He stroked his beard, his eyes full of anticipation. What if they do make it? Luo Shan asked quietly. Make it? The head of Yuehua shook his head, not optimistic. Daluo Tiangong, the soul-devouring sect. Either one could wreak havoc in the southern part of the spirit realm. Even with Gu Changqing, could one person really change things? But remembering his disciple's story about Gu Changqing killing the soul-devouring sect messenger, he got a little worried. Maybe the Gu family really has something special. Either way, if they survive, we don't have to worry. We can just submit to them. It's those big shots in the central part of the spiritual domain who should be worried. He chuckled, a hint of gloating in his eyes. After all, if they can withstand attacks from Daluo Tiangong and the soul-devouring sect, they'll be close to a real Saint Emperor powerhouse. Similar conversations were happening all over the south. The Gu family was now the talk of the town. The news about the updated spirit list hardly got any attention. The spirit list had never been relevant to them. They cared more about what would happen to the Gu family. But when the spirit list was announced, they couldn't sit still. The Gu family's evergreen God King was ranked first. What? The pride of the spirit ranking? The Gu family's God King isn't some old monster, but a young genius. That everyone was dumbfounded. Even those who weren't optimistic about the Gu family, like the head of Yuehua, got excited. But their excitement didn't last long. Almost as soon as the spirit list was released in the south, hundreds of powerful auras appeared in the sky, heading straight for the Han and Qin empires. The Gu family's trouble is here. Chapter 86. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Above the sea of clouds, a fleet of spirit boats sliced through the sky, unleashing a wave of oppressive energy that made it hard for countless cultivators in the southern spiritual domain to breathe. Leading the way, a spirit boat proudly displayed a flag emblazoned with the 4 characters of the Daluo Tiangong, radiating brilliant light. This wasn't just a banner of identity, but a powerful imperial treasure. It amplified the spiritual energy in a 10,000-foot radius, empowering the spirit boat with incredible magic and force. Trailing behind were 9 more spirit boats. Each boat was commanded by a celestial emperor and several mysterious emperor realm masters. In the southern spiritual domain, a celestial emperor was a top-tier expert, capable of founding a holy land. But in this fleet, they were just average. tasked with commanding a single boat and providing support. Is this the true might of Daluo Tiangong? Countless cultivators in the southern region were stunned. The sheer scale of this force exceeded their wildest imaginations. 9 celestial emperors, dozens of mysterious emperors, they had enough power to sweep the entire southern spiritual domain. Below, the southern cultivators were in shock. On the lead spirit boat, Yu Baifeng emerged from the cabin and stood proudly beside the flag. Then, 2 old men, their expressions as heavy as mountains, joined him. They were none other than the Daluo Palace Master and the Yulong Deputy Palace Master, 2 giants in the late stage of the Divine Emperor realm. Divine Emperor realm. And 2 of them. Panic spread through the southern ranks. Was this the power of the spiritual domain's true heavyweights? Could forces like Yuehua Holy Land and Kanglan Holy Land even be considered holy lands compared to titans like Daluo Tiangong? Rumor had it that when Changqing crushed Kanglan Holy Land, he was accompanied by a divine emperor-level woman. But even so, what good was one divine emperor? Yu Baifeng's revenge squad had brought 2 divine emperors, and they were both at the late stage. The Gu family is finished, the Yuehua patriarch muttered from his holy land, watching the spirit boat fleet head towards the Han and Qin empires. The Gu family had risen fast, but their fall would be even faster. Before they could enjoy their power, they were about to be wiped from the spiritual domain. Aboard the spirit boat, Yu Baifeng was consumed by excitement, eager to obliterate the Gu family and everyone in it. He sneered at the fearful glances from the cultivators below. 2 divine emperors scared them. He had invited more than 2. Yu Baifeng glanced back at the cabin. His master and uncle had come out to command the ship, but a senior remained inside. That was their trump card, an elder from the Hua family, invited by his fiancée, Hualieni. While not as powerful as a saint emperor, the Daluo Palace Master and the Jade Dragon Divine Emperor treated this old man with respect because he was at the pinnacle of the Divine Emperor realm. 1 perfect Divine Emperor, 2 late-stage Divine Emperors, plus, the Celestial Emperor elders recruited by Yu Baifeng's other friends. This lineup made Yu Baifeng feel invincible. Gu Changqing, your death and the death of your family will be Ling Xian's memorial. Fueled by murderous intent, Yu Baifeng followed the spirit boat fleet across the sky, arriving above the Han and Qin empires. The Han and Qin empires trembled, bracing for the storm. Their leaders feared retribution from Yu Baifeng, but the Daluo Tiangong fleet didn't linger, heading straight for Jianglin City, where the Gu family resided. The empires breathed a collective sigh of relief. The Jiang family was especially relieved. They had worried they would be targeted because of their connection to the Gu family. Now, it seemed they had overestimated their importance. Daluo Tiangong truly lives up to its name. A power of this level is magnanimous. Exactly. Unlike the petty Gu family, even with an evergreen god king, they were quick to kill. Did they not realize they were dooming their family? The Jiang family rejoiced. They still remembered the humiliation of being driven out of Jianglin City by Gu Changqing, and the Gu family's cold attitude at the southern ceremony had stung. Sister, you can't escape death now. You thought you married well, but it will be your end. Jiang Baiwei felt a chill. Jiang Yunshan had always used his daughter as a pawn. He harbored resentment toward Gu Changqing for his indifference to the Jiang family, but had been powerless to act. Now, seeing the Gu family in mortal danger, he felt vindicated. He savored the thought of Gu Changqing's downfall, but God King Jiang sighed, watching the departing fleet. Although humiliated by Gu Changqing, he felt more sorrow for his current plight. He thought that reaching the God King realm would allow him to take revenge, but now, even someone stronger than him was about to be crushed by divine emperors. God King Jiang felt no pleasure, only sadness. What does it mean to be a God King? Before true giants, we're just ants. He regretted their estrangement. The Jiang family had lost their chance to befriend the Gu family, but now, watching the Daluo Tiangong spirit boats, he felt fortunate. If they had reconciled, the Jiang family would be facing destruction alongside the Gu family. It was a pity. If Gu Changqing had survived, he could have been a giant. And his children. What a pity. The Jiang family ignored the old God King's lament. Jiang Yunshan led a group of Jiang family executives to witness the Gu family's end firsthand. Many other forces shared their sentiment. Some, like Yuehua Holy Land, simply wanted to confirm the news. They would then seize the Gu family's territory, or rather, the former Kanglen Holy Land's territory. The people of Daluo Tiangong welcomed the audience. The more witnesses, the greater the deterrent effect of the Gu family's destruction. Daluo Tiangong wanted everyone in the spiritual domain to know that they were not to be trifled with. As Jianglin City came into view, the eyes of the emperors, the mysterious emperors, and the two palace masters of Daluo Tiangong gleamed. After today, the Gu family will be erased, and the spiritual realm will learn that no one associated with Daluo Tiangong is to be challenged. Chapter 87. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hanqin Empire, near Jianglin City. All factions had gathered. Seeing the Daluo Tiangong spirit boat fleet approaching in the distance, they wisely stopped any further, and they'd be caught in the crossfire. They came to witness the Gu family's downfall, not to join them in the grave, but amidst the onlookers, one striking figure pressed on. Gu Changqing would have immediately recognized her, Fairy Lu, one of the two pavilion masters of Xianin Pavilion, whom he'd met at the southern ceremony. Now, in a simple green dress and without her usual pearl hairpins, she resembled any other wandering cultivator, yet her beauty was even more striking. Her eyes, filled with determination, were fixed on Jianglin City. Upon hearing that Daluo Tiangong was headed for Jianglin City, she immediately left Xianin Pavilion to support the Gu family. Though Fairy Lu knew her strength was negligible against Daluo Tiangong's forces, anyone from those spirit boats could wipe her out in an instant. Still, it was her choice. If the Gu family hadn't intervened at the southern ceremony, Xianin Pavilion's fate would have been dire because of the Yanlong Dynasty's God King's arrogance. Fairy Lu and her Xianin Pavilion disciples would have suffered a terrible fate. She couldn't forget that kindness, so, back at Xianin Pavilion, she entrusted the pavilion's affairs to Fairy Qin and confined by Yueling, her disciple, to prevent her from rushing to her death. With all that done, she set off for Jianglin City, ready to die. Just as Fairy Lu neared Jianglin City, a spatial rift suddenly appeared above the city, arriving even before Daluo Tiangong, which surprised her. From the rift emerged a girl in simple white clothes, carrying a sword and radiating an otherworldly air. She looked around, puzzled. Is this where Gu Changqing is? The spiritual energy's awful. This sword-wielding girl was, of course, Luo Xinyue, the former top cultivator. Standing on a sea of clouds, Luo Xinyue surveyed Jianglin City below. Though puzzled, she trusted her family's intel. Gu Changqing, the Gu family's genius, was said to be here. Luo Xinyue spoke, her voice amplified by spiritual power, echoing throughout Jianglin City. Young Master Gu Changqing, are you in the city? Luo Xinyue is here to see you. Her words caused a stir in Jianglin City. The cultivators, already on edge with Daluo Tiangong approaching, were terrified by Luo Xinyue's pronouncement. The Gu family members looked up in astonishment. Luo Xinyue. They knew a formidable enemy was coming, but Luo Xinyue wasn't on their radar. Even Gu Changqing was confused. I'll go check it out. Gu Changqing calmly stepped into the air. He sensed her high level of power. At the peak of the Xian King stage among the Gu family, only he and Xian Huang could stand up to her. Who is this girl? I don't remember ever meeting her. Gu Changqing wondered, gazing at the silver-armored girl on the sea of clouds. Are you Gu Changqing? Luo Xinyue stared at him, inwardly impressed. Not bad looking. Luo Xinyue was about to draw her sword and challenge him, but before she could speak. Boom! A dark, abyss-like pressure surged from the distance, silencing her. What's that? Luo Xinyue looked up, startled. She'd used her family's teleportation array to reach Jianglin City quickly. Unaware and uncaring about the Gu family's problems, she only wanted to fight the one who had taken her spot to see if he was a worthy champion. Now, she felt the terrifying aura of powerful emperors and giants. Luo Xinyue was taken aback. Don't worry, they're not after you. Gu Changqing stepped forward, his expression calm, and gazed into the distance. 10 spirit boats emerged from the clouds, their ominous presence like a dark mountain looming over Jianglin City, stifling the breath of countless cultivators below. The powerful emperors on the spirit boats unleashed their energy, their combined power forming a five-colored canopy in the sky. The power soared. The ominous aura intensified. This was the might of Daluo Tiangong, a god emperor's powerhouse. Their mere presence was enough to strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. My god! The cultivators in Jianglin City were speechless. The strongest person they'd ever seen was the old god king of the Jiang family, maybe the Gu family's young master, god king Changqing. Never had they imagined so many emperor-level powerhouses gathering in Jianglin City. What did desperation look like? This was it. Even the Xian emperor, hidden in the Gu family mansion, frowned. She'd warned Gu Changqing, she could take the Gu family's core members away first, or Gu Changqing could take the children while she covered their escape. They couldn't risk everything in one place. Daluo Tiangong had sent too many, she alone couldn't handle it all. Run. You think you can escape Daluo Tiangong's reach? Xian emperor sighed. Looking up, she saw the two main palace masters and deputy of Daluo Tiangong. At the peak of the god-queen stage, Xian emperor felt the pressure. Well, if worse comes to worst, I'll fight to the death. This emperor's life was given to me by him, and now, I'll return it. Xian emperor didn't speak, but her eyes were filled with determination. It seemed the Gu family's troubles weren't over yet, just as Daluo Tiangong's spirit boats surrounded the Gu family in Jianglinqing. He. A dark, ink-black light column, radiating a deadly aura that threatened to devour souls, descended from the sky. Boom! The dark light column landed. The force was such that even Daluo Tiangong's spirit boats recoiled slightly. The emperors on the boats looked at the light column, or rather, at the black-robed old man who slowly emerged from it. Their eyes were filled with dread. God Emperor. Perfection. Inside the Gu family mansion, Xian Huang's face was grim. She could sense that the black-robed old man's power rivaled her own at her peak, and he was definitely a God Emperor realm powerhouse. Soul-devouring ghost. You've come too. Does the Gu family have a vendetta against you? Just as Xian Huang felt apprehensive, from Daluo Heavenly Palace's main spirit boat. An old voice echoed, causing everyone in Jianglin City and even the spectators to hold their breath. A wave of energy, no less powerful than the black-robed old man's, emanated from the spirit boat. Another giant in the God Emperor Perfection realm. Chapter 88. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Above the cloud sea, another powerhouse at the peak of the Divine Emperor realm materialized, his aura so intense it stole the breath from every cultivator. The elites from the southern Holy Lands snapped to attention. While ordinary southern cultivators wouldn't recognize him, these elites knew exactly who he was. This elder was a legend throughout the spiritual domain. He was the Hua family's third elder, a member of the rare Saint Emperor family, the Divine Emperor of the Misty Moon. Though only at the Divine Emperor's peak, his upbringing under a Saint Emperor-level titan made him far stronger than other Divine Emperors. Daluo Heavenly Palace actually brought out this big shot. Unbelievable. Several Holy Land experts couldn't help but gulp, their eyes now filled with pity as they looked towards Jianglin and the Gu family's mansion. With the Emperor of the Misty Moon involved, the Gu family had no chance. And then there was the old man in black robes, whom the Emperor of the Misty Moon called Old Ghost. The name was unfamiliar to most southern cultivators, but if you called him the soul-devouring emperor, everyone in the spiritual realm would know who he was. This emperor, hailing from the soul-devouring sect, had a terrifying reputation across the land. He had destroyed forces like Kanglan Holy Land countless times. His most infamous act, the obliteration of the mountain sect a century ago, that sect was led by an emperor-level giant. Yet, the soul-devouring emperor slaughtered him, sacrificing the entire sect to his soul-devouring mist. Even the God Emperor became fuel for the soul-devouring emperor. His name, soul-devouring, echoed throughout the spirit realm because of it. And today, this soul-devouring emperor had returned. Hearing the Misty Moon Emperor's question, the soul-devouring emperor sneered, his eyes fixed on Jianglin with a cruel glint. This member of the Gu family dared to kill those aligned with my soul-devouring sect, and even dared to kill my soul-binding envoy. How could I let that slide? To let the Gu family off would be to undermine the soul-devouring sect's authority. Hearing the soul-devouring emperor's chilling words, the Jiang family members watching from afar breathed a sigh of relief. Earlier, they resented the Gu family's indifference and regretted their harsh treatment of Jiang Lianqin, but now, seeing the Gu family surrounded by powerful enemies, they felt only gratitude and secret joy. Jiang Yunshan even sneered, "That Gu family young master, the Changqing God King, sure knows how to stir up trouble." Just as he spoke, Gu Changqing, seeing the approaching enemies, stepped forward, leaving a dazed Luo Xinyue behind him, and faced them head-on. Oh! He actually came out on his own. The powerhouses outside Jianglin City were surprised by Gu Changqing's sudden appearance. The soul-devouring emperor's eyes lit up at the sight of Gu Changqing. He could sense a powerful divine thought hidden within Gu Changqing. Even if he didn't know how much, devouring and refining Gu Changqing would transform his soul-devouring mist, possibly even paving the way for him to reach the Saint Emperor realm. The soul-devouring emperor's gaze turned greedy. However, Yu Baifeng was even more excited. The moment Gu Changqing appeared, he knew he was the one who killed Yu Lingxian. Immediately, Yu Baifeng's eyes turned bloodshot. "You killed Lingxian?" Yu Baifeng roared, his eyes burning with murderous intent, but before he could finish, Gu Changqing silenced him. Bang! Gu Changqing struck out with a palm, the sheer power creating a sonic boom, an unstoppable force with unparalleled momentum. Yu Baifeng's face filled with terror. He never imagined Gu Changqing would attack him, not with the two palace masters of Daluo Heavenly Palace and so many emperor-level masters present. Everyone was stunned. Nobody expected Gu Changqing to attack so brazenly. Feeling the irresistible force, Yu Baifeng barely had time to react before he was about to die on the spot. Fortunately, a Tianhuang from Daluo Heavenly Palace, standing close to Yu Baifeng, reacted instantly, flashing in front of Yu Baifeng. "How dare you!" He shouted, raising his hand to draw a light seal, slamming it against Gu Changqing's palm. The light seal and the palm collided in mid-air, momentarily blocking the attack. "Good! It's Elder Yunan," the Daluo Heavenly Palace experts cheered. Yu Baifeng, feeling like he had just escaped death, cheered subconsciously, extremely grateful to the Daluo Heavenly Palace elder who had saved him, but the next second. Puff! There was only the sickening sound of flesh tearing. Elder Yunan, hearing the cheers, had begun to smile, but it was cut short. The spiritual light seal he had created was shattered by Gu Changqing's palm, which then pierced right through him, destroying his lungs. Though he still looked human, his internal organs and dantian were completely collapsed, his life force extinguished instantly. A powerhouse at the peak of the Emperor realm, killed instantly by Gu Changqing's palm. Puff! Elder Yunan only had time to cough up a mouthful of blood, spraying Yu Baifeng, before collapsing into a lifeless heap. The shockwave seriously injured Yu Baifeng. This injury came at the cost of an emperor's life. The whole process was lightning fast. Yu Baifeng's grateful smile was still on his face when he spat out blood. His eyes were dull, his will shattered into countless pieces. Even more desperate than that, was Gu Changqing's utter calmness. Killing a peak emperor was nothing to him, like drinking water. "Who do you think you are? You aren't worthy to speak to me." Gu Changqing's words were calm, but filled with absolute tyranny. To Yu Baifeng, Gu Changqing's words were like thunder, further damaging his shattered spirit. The surrounding cultivators, even the powerhouses from Daluo Heavenly Palace, were hardly better off than Yu Baifeng. Looking at the dead Elder Yunan, they could hardly believe their eyes. A powerhouse at the peak of the Emperor realm, killed by a single palm from Gu Changqing. Luo Xinyue in the distance was completely stunned. "Just now, I actually tried to challenge him." Chapter 89. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Standing on the sea of clouds, Gu Changqing exuded an aura of otherworldly grace. Everyone was still reeling from his single-handed defeat of the emperor. He seemed like a sword immortal descended to earth, an unparalleled figure. Luo Xinyue, watching from afar, was utterly stunned. She was lost in thought, trying to process what she just witnessed. While she was definitely a martial arts fanatic, she wasn't a fool. She knew her own limitations and how far she still needed to go. Her passion For martial arts didn't blind her to the reality of power. In her eyes, someone like the emperor was a towering figure, far beyond her current abilities, yet, Changqing had casually crushed him with a single palm. An elder Yunnan was no ordinary fighter. He hailed from Daluo Heavenly Palace and possessed their unique skills. His battle prowess was far superior to that of most heavenly emperors. Even so, he stood no chance against Changqing. Just what kind of power was this? Even early-stage divine emperors might not be capable of such a feat. The sheer magnitude of it all shook Luo Xinyue to her core. The palace master of Daluo Palace scowled, his eyes fixed on Changqing, filled with murderous intent. Although this kid isn't quite at the level of a divine emperor, he's getting dangerously close. We can't let him live. The palace master muttered. Beside him, the deputy palace master of Yulong nodded grimly, his own eyes hardening with malice. So, this is how you manage to destroy the Kanglan Holy Land and dare to attack the soul-binding envoy of our holy church. You're certainly no pushover. Nearby, the soul-devouring divine emperor narrowed his eyes, a dangerous glint in their depths. He shared the same sentiment as the Daluo Palace master. Witnessing Changqing's strength, they all agreed he needed to be eliminated. Fortunately, despite his impressive display, Changqing was still no match for the likes of the Daluo Palace master. He was just a divine emperor. Even if he were a prodigy, whose power rivaled a mid-stage divine emperor, so what? They had 2 late-stage divine emperors and a pair of perfect-stage divine emperors. With that kind of firepower, dealing with Changqing should be a piece of cake. Just then, a figure appeared, descending upon the sea of clouds, and landing beside Changqing, instantly drawing everyone's attention. That is. Even Longyue and Tunhun, both perfect-stage divine emperors, squinted, their eyes flashing with coldness. It was Xianhuang. She concealed her true appearance behind a veil. Rebuilding her body and starting anew was a significant undertaking, and though Changqing said it would be fine, Xianhuang was still wary of causing unnecessary trouble for him. Changqing didn't object, letting her do as she wished. Even concealed, the sheer force of Xianhuang's aura was enough to astound everyone. She may not have fully recovered her strength, but she had once stood at the pinnacle of the divine emperor realm. The moment her powerful aura was unleashed, it commanded everyone's attention. Another divine emperor powerhouse. The Gu family, they have another real divine emperor. The onlookers were stunned. The Gu family's true strength was beyond anything they had imagined. They thought Changqing was their only ace, but now, a second divine emperor had emerged. Unbelievable. Truly unbelievable, that the cultivators of the Han Qin Empire were deeply moved, and the Jiang family was in shock. Jiang Yunshan and Jiang Baiwei, in particular, had thought the Gu family was doomed, but Changqing had pulled out another game-changer. It's okay. It's okay. It's just one divine emperor. Even with Changqing, that's only 2. It's not enough to turn the tide. A few members of the Jiang family muttered amongst themselves, unsure whether they were analyzing the situation or trying to convince themselves. No one paid them any attention. On the sea of clouds, Changqing looked at the newly arrived Xian emperor, a sense of gratitude welling up inside him. He transmitted his voice, "Friend Xian emperor, thank you." With Xian emperor's strength, she could easily leave. Changqing was seemingly cornered, so even if she chose to abandon him, no one could blame her. Yet, she had chosen to stay and stand by the Gu family. They had an agreement, but an agreement was not an oath. Furthermore, Xian Emperor had stated that if faced with an insurmountable crisis, she would not help and would leave. And the situation now, for her, this was a crisis she couldn't resolve, even if it cost her life. The deputy palace master of Daluo Heavenly Palace alone might be enough to defeat her. Despite all this, Xian Emperor had chosen to stand tall. Her loyalty deeply touched Changqing. "No need to thank me, we had an agreement. Later, I'll hold them back for you. Find a way to get your wife and family out of here." Xian Emperor replied softly, transmitting her voice. Her tone was calm, as though her mind was made up. Her injuries hadn't fully healed, and her strength wasn't even on par with the palace masters of Daluo Heavenly Palace, but if she unleashed her full potential, sacrificing everything, she could temporarily restore her strength to its peak form. It wouldn't be enough to turn the tide of the battle. But it would buy the Gu family time to escape. As Xian Emperor spoke, the Daluo Heavenly Palace side recovered from their shock, sensing the pressure emanating from her. The palace master of Daluo Heavenly Palace sneered at Xian Emperor. His contempt for Gu Changqing was obvious. I thought you were hiding some ace up your sleeve, but it turns out, this is all you got. A mere divine emperor. You think that can protect you? That the palace master stepped forward, making a move on Xian Emperor. The others remained still, including the soul-devouring divine emperor. They quietly dispersed, surrounding Gu Changqing and Xian Huang, cutting off all their escape routes. This was the Daluo Palace master's overbearing power. Blessed with the cultivation of the late stage of the divine queen, he was confident that he could fight two opponents at once and suppress Xian Huang and Gu Changqing. Gu Daoyu, retreat, find an opportunity, I will deal with him. Xian Huang's expression turned grave, and she immediately stepped forward to protect Gu Changqing. But just as she was about to engage, Gu Changqing moved ahead. Leave this one to me, Daoyu Xian Huang. Don't worry. Gu Changqing smiled, his eyes fixed on the Daluo Palace master in the distance. He displayed no fear, only an uncontainable fighting spirit. Within his sea of consciousness, four king-level divine swords floated, resonating with the Zhuxian sword formation he'd cultivated. The other three king weapons had been refined by Gu Changqing that day, using the materials that his son, Gu Qingchen, had acquired in the secret realm. Four king-level divine weapons served as the foundation, amplified by Gu Changqing's chaos sword body. The power of the immortal execution sword formation had reached unprecedented levels. The Daluo Palace master was only in the late stage of the divine queen. Even Longyue and the soul-devouring divine emperor were in the perfect stage. Gu Changqing could still handle them, but to deal with the Daluo Heavenly Palace master, it wasn't necessary to use the immortal execution sword formation. Since acquiring the system, Gu Changqing had rarely encountered an opponent worthy of his full effort, and this time, facing the Daluo Palace master, who was 3 realms higher than him, Gu Changqing felt a long-lost, intense desire to fight. I wonder, without using the Zhuxian sword formation, what level of strength can I reach? Gu Changqing murmured and stepped forward. He confronted the Lord of Daluo Palace, and was going to fight against this giant in the spirit realm of the Queen of Gods with his own strength. You have a death wish. The Lord of Daluo Palace sneered, murderous intent evident in his eyes. Since you seek death, I will grant you your wish. This blade will send you to the west. The Lord of Daluo Palace drew his blade, and the spiritual power was condensed. The blood moon scimitar in his hand cut out a sad and beautiful moon arc, which quickly swept towards Gu Changqing. In an instant, it engulfed Gu Changqing's figure. However, Gu Changqing's breath was not instantly annihilated as everyone expected. On the contrary. When the moon arc fell on Gu Changqing, Gu Changqing didn't use any special technique. He simply channeled his spiritual power to create a layer of sword energy as protection. The blade light that was powerful enough to kill an ordinary god emperor was like a knife cutting the sword. The moment it hit this layer of sword energy, like tofu, it was easily split into 2 pieces and collapsed between heaven and earth. What? Chapter 90. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at the attack that Gu Changqing's sword energy effortlessly deflected, even the Daluo Palace master, not just the surrounding onlookers, was stunned in disbelief. He hadn't used his full power, sure, but he knew just how potent that sword strike was. He figured it would, at the very least, seriously wound Gu Changqing, but Gu Changqing had brushed it off like it was nothing. If that's all you've got, Gu Changqing said, a hint of genuine disappointment in his voice, I'm going to be very let down. The Daluo Palace master's face darkened. Fine, he roared, anger flashing in his eyes, and with a flick of his sleeve, *clang, star. Swords ringing exploded, followed by 9 more, each echoing through the sky. Behind the Daluo Palace master, 9 blood-red long swords materialized, forming a whirling blade wheel behind him. The Daluo blade wheel. His signature weapon. 9 layers. Each layer is a mid-tier Imperial Divine weapon. Combined, they're on par with a high-tier, 5th-level Imperial artifact. He's really pulling out all the stops now, that the audience held its breath. The Daluo Palace Master glared at Gu Changqing, hoping to see a flicker of fear, but Gu Changqing remained calm, his expression unchanging. "Let's see if you're still so cool next time," that the Daluo Palace Master hissed, and with another flick of his robe, whoosh, the terrifying blade wheel, a vortex of 9 blood-red scimitars fueled by his spiritual power, tore through the cloud sea, leaving a crimson trail as it hurtled toward Gu Changqing. The clouds parted, and the air screamed as if the divine weapon of a god emperor was about to rip it asunder. In an instant, the blade wheel reached Gu Changqing, crashing into him, clang, not the sound of flesh tearing that everyone expected. Gu Changqing wasn't obliterated. At the last second, he conjured a sword of pure spiritual energy, colliding directly with the Daluo blade wheel. Clang 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 clang, above the clouds, swords and knives clashed, the deafening metallic clang reverberating like thunder, leaving the onlookers speechless. Gu Changqing, using his spiritual energy to create a barrage of chaotic, mountain-crushing sword strikes, was meeting the Daluo Palace Master's onslaught head-on. Though the Daluo blade wheel was terrifying, reeking of death, Gu Changqing's defense held. The blade wheel couldn't get within 3 feet of him, his sword energy was an impenetrable barrier. Am I dreaming? This Gu family god king is insane. The Daluo Palace Master whips out his signature weapon, and it's not enough. Is he really just a god king? Anyone would think he's a god queen with that kind of power. A monster. An absolute monster. The crowd was stunned. The Daluo Palace Master's face grew darker still. A stalemate with Gu Changqing was an honor for Gu Changqing, but it was a humiliation for him, the Lord of Daluo Palace. He, a master of 3 realms, using his own divine weapon, couldn't beat Gu Changqing. Unacceptable. Die! The Daluo Palace Master roared, spitting a mouthful of blood. The blood, laced with spiritual power, splattered on the Daluo blade wheel, infusing it with his very essence. Buzz, the divine light and murderous aura emanating from the blade wheel intensified, its power surging, and it charged at Gu Changqing once more. The Lord of Daluo Palace locked onto Gu Changqing, his mind and energy focused. Even if Gu Changqing tried to dodge now, he was confident he could unleash the Daluo blade wheel to intercept him. But facing the terrifying blade wheel, Gu Changqing didn't dodge. Instead, he narrowed his eyes, his tone tinged with regret. Still a bit of a struggle to handle a god queen with just my own power, huh? Gu Changqing could sense it. Blocking the Daluo Palace Master's attack wasn't impossible, but he'd take some damage. Without the immortal execution sword formation, his killing power was on par with a powerful mid-stage god emperor. Compared to a true god queen, there was still a gap. So, immortal execution sword formation, activate. Gu Changqing roared, swish, 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 behind him, spiritual energy surged, and 4 blinding sword lights rose like light dragons, piercing the sky. Their potent sword energy spread, transforming into a magnificent, boundless killing formation. The formation pulsed with light, cold and sharp, its killing aura blanketing the entire battlefield. Even the soul-devouring God Emperor and the other 2 watching from afar were affected, sensing a threat emanating from it. What kind of killing array is this? Immortal Execution Sword Array. A bold name. The Daluo Palace Master's face changed, engaged with Gu Changqing. He felt the effects of the Immortal Execution Sword Array most acutely. He could feel the murderous intent in the air, targeting him, but looking at the 4 swords Gu Changqing summoned, magnificent as they were just king-level weapons. He grit his teeth. I refuse to believe a mere god king can turn the tide. With that, boom. His Daluo blade will transformed into a blood-red streak and crashed into the Immortal Execution Sword Array, but Gu Changqing didn't look afraid. Instead, a smirk crept across his face. You asked for this. The next second, to the crowd's horror, thousands of sword lights erupted from the immortal execution sword formation, bombarding the Daluo blade wheel that the Daluo palace master had spent countless years honing. In mere moments, the Daluo blade wheel, which even late-stage god emperors hesitated to confront, trembled and shattered before Gu Changqing's immortal execution sword formation, collapsing into a ball of dissipating energy. "Pa!" thought the Daluo palace master, coughed up blood as his life-bound weapon was destroyed, shock and disbelief writ large on his face. How can you be so powerful?" The lord of Daluo Tiangong could barely choke out the words. Gu Changqing was just a god king.